Welcome back to Words of Wokism. This is number 36. Today, cultural competency or cultural literacy. They sometimes are used interchangeably or together, and you've probably seen it in your child's school materials, curriculum, assignments, etc. If you haven't, I would encourage you right now, even while you're watching this video, to go to the website for your district and just do a search on cultural literacy or cultural competence, because that, cultural relevance might be another one, or even cultural sensitivity, something along those lines. You often see it within social emotional learning components at your child's school, or just social emotional learning companies talk about this a lot, because you see the social and emotional skills are supposed to help give kids this cultural competence and cultural literacy and all of this stuff. And you might have wondered, well, what does that mean? Now, I could go into the nitty-gritty of the ways this comes up in a lesson, or how they use, let's say hip-hop to teach math or something like that, and call it cultural competency or cultural literacy. But really what it comes right down to is the purpose of this is to make children aware, like acutely aware of their differences from other children, ethnically or racially or religiously, something like that. It's another way they tune them in to their identity differences. But what you might not understand is the why is not necessarily what you think. You might think it's to divide, which to a certain extent it is, but it is not to divide them from each other necessarily. It's to get them more dialed into the notion that the state or the nation or whatever the larger collective is that claims to care about and recognize these little individual identities, that those are the ones who care about them. People who say, yes, this is important, your cultural identity is important. And those people who say, no, you're an individual and you're not the sum of these arbitrary parts, and no, that's not who you are. And we're just individuals. If you're an individualist, if you're not a statist, not a collectivist, you look at objective reality and treat people as you find them and so on. They want them separate from you. That's for sure. If you don't want to recognize their pronouns, if you don't want to see them as an avatar for all people of color or something, then you're on the outs. You are now culturally insensitive, culturally illiterate, and culturally irrelevant to them, because the only culture they actually care about is statism, collectivism, communism, right? Where the victim is central to everything, and the collective is the only place you can truly feel that you belong. You have to be included in the collective. So the way we start that is we divide you in lots of little collectives. Now that you are in a small collective, we have the larger collective say, hi, we're the ones that recognize your little collective. And we want to center you. Center all of you. You and you and you and you and you. But if you think about it, they're not really separate in the end, are they? Just by subdividing in their little groups, they feel special. They don't realize their individuality is being stolen from them, and they are going to be under the same boot heel as the next group and the next group and the next group. It makes them feel special. And then they truly think that the people who ultimately will be oppressing them are their saviors and protectors, because they recognize their special otherness, whereas the rest of us do not. Now, here's the irony of all this. I'm sitting here and watching what's going on in Western North Carolina. I'm in North Carolina, but I'm in Charlotte, so I'm about an hour and a half away from where some of this stuff begins and about 2 hours away from where the worst of it is. But I've spent a lot of time in the mountains. I don't claim to understand mountain people, because I'm not one of them, but I have deep and abiding respect for them, because I have spent enough time in the mountains to know that it is a tough place to live and eke out a living and build generation after generation of culture. So knowing what it takes to do all that, knowing that I am not of that, didn't grow up there. I'm a city kid originally, knowing that is not my culture, my world, my whatever. I have respect for it. I recognize what I don't know. And I, to a certain degree, defer when people who are from the mountains say they're doing things, they need something, they don't need something, etc. I've also taken some time, not just in the course of looking at this disaster, because my daughter is out there at school, but also before that, every time I would go visit, anytime I would, look into the history of my own state, because I do things like that, I would look at, how did they come to be and so on. And then what else? As goofy as it sounds, I've watched all the seasons so far of Outlander, so I know who settled the mountains of North Carolina, the Scottish and the Irish, and people who said, hey, this is similar to the Highlands, and we're going to come here and be our rugged selves and have generation after generation of this kind of culture. So I have enough awareness of what's going on to recognize when people who don't are flexing some very flaccid little muscles in the cultural competency and cultural literacy department. So that's the grand irony, is the same people who espouse these views that this is important for your children, that they have to have all this SEL because they need to be culturally competent, because they need to be culturally sensitive, because they need to be, all this cultural relevant education, etc. The same ones who are selling you on that and telling you it's going to make your children better people, they're going to be more sensitive to, and you probably think everyone, they'll be more sensitive to everyone who's different from them. They will be more humble about what they don't know about other people. They'll be more respectful and not engage in cultural appropriation and things like that. First of all, they're lying. That's not what it's for. It's for what I just told you. It's to divide them, to bring them all together under one giant collectivist tent of, we'll protect you. But the opposite is true of these people who push this crap, which should be the tell to you that they're not remotely interested in individuating even the cultures, even these ethnicities, that really all they care about is bringing people into the fold, using this crap to make them feel special. Because I've seen posts, most notably from some kid who lives in a city in Ohio, saying, oh, you expect us to believe that some random hillbilly, he literally wrote, like, the internet's forever, dude. He literally typed the words random hillbilly and put it in quotes. Yeah. You really expect us to believe they have, $100,000, earth moving equipment or whatever it was. I just had to step back, and I was aghast. Because if you go to this person's timeline, it's all about the same stuff we're talking about. We have to be sensitive, blah, 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 and, bring it together and have this ethnicity and that ethnicity. And, city living is so important because it brings people together, and diversity. So I absolutely guarantee this person thinks that cultural competency and cultural relevance, etc., is important. Probably thinks that he's culturally competent. And yet said that. So that's what I want you to understand, is the reason there's so much dissonance, and you're like, I don't get it. In my kids' school, they're talking about cultural relevance and competence and sensitivity, but when it comes to pick a culture, mountain culture, people who are white Western European Christians, people who are just Jews, people who are Zionists, people who are not of the approved, anything that doesn't want to be lumped into the collectivist statist world, that doesn't want to defer to who has more oppression and less oppression, and you tell us, big brother, they're on the outs. Those cultures don't count. They don't want them under the tent unless they throw away their pro-Western, pro-individualist, pro-enlightenment culture. The one that's self-reliant, the one that says, I don't need the government looking after me. You got, take your FEMA and shove it up your FEMA. Okay? So, they don't want that. And so that's why you might be confused, because you will see some of the most casual bigotry and ignorance displayed by the very people who throw these terms around and sprinkle education material with them and lead you to believe, I should say mislead you to believe, that they're actually sensitive to all kinds of different ways of knowing or ways of life or belief systems or whatever. No, they're not. They want your children to be very aware of any of theirs that can align them with this victim narrative that someone is oppressing them, or conversely, that they are oppressing someone, that their culture of origin is their oppressive. Even if they personally, or you personally, and all the way back several generations personally, never did any oppressing whatsoever, even if you are descended from mountain people who have taken care of themselves for a very, very long time, they want your children, to be very culturally sensitive to what their bad culture has done, so that they can then come under the tent and be, appropriately subservient and whatever in the giant collective that is forming to allegedly make a better world. But none of it means what you think it means. So, quick recap. Cultural competency, cultural relevance, cultural literacy, all of these terms are really just another way to destroy individualism, self-reliance, individual competence, and create a whole new kind of person who isolates these shallow differences for the sole purpose of identifying themselves as a victim or oppressor who neither needs to atone or be taken under the protection of the state, the almighty state. The Bolsheviks used this, the Maoists used this, and here we are doing it again. So go right now and look at your child's district and just type into the little search those words, any combination of those words. Just type in cultural, see what you get. Because I can pretty much guarantee you, if it's a public school district, you will probably find it. Hope that helps. Have a great day.